All right, great. Okay, so I will share the screen. Let's see. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Okay, so as we said yesterday, we will begin discussing the comparisons between the Hammurabi Code and Mosaic Law. All right. So let's look at comparison number 1. Can somebody please read it for me?
I can.
Okay, Maddie, please.
If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall also be put out. If he break another man's bone, his bone shall also be broken. Should I also read the Moses one?
Just read the entire Hammurabi Code 1, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
If he put out the eye of a freedman, or break the bone of a freedman, he shall pay 1 gold mina. 3, if he put out the eye of a man's slave, or break the bone of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 of its value. If a man knock out the teeth of his equal, his teeth shall also be knocked out. If he knock out the teeth of a freedman, he shall pay 1/3 of a gold mina.
Great. Okay, can you please continue reading with the Mosaic Law?
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. When a slave owner strikes the eye of a male or female slave, destroying it, the owner shall let the slave go, a free person, to compensate for the eye. If the owner knocks out the tooth of a male or female slave, the slave shall be let go, a freed person, to compensate for the tooth.
Great, thank you so much, Maddie. All right, so now according to your worksheets, what are some similarities that you see between the two laws?
Miss, can I answer?
Yes, Zaid.
Both have, equality. Like if you punch that person, you shall be punched back. Or like, let's say you took out the eye of that guy, you get the eye took out of yours. So it's basically, it's working for equalities, working for equals.
Yeah, exactly. Great job, great job.
Okay.
Somebody wants to say something else? Yes, Lorena.
Okay, so basically both of them have the same, the ones that you can have a comeback to the ones that hurt you physically.
Right, exactly. So basically, this is the principle of the crime. The punishment for a crime has to fit the crime, right? There has to be a corresponding punishment, okay? So it has to be equivalent. That's the principle behind this. Why do we know that it's not a literal, if somebody strikes your eye, you should strike back his eye? Why do we know that's not literal?
Because not every crime is physical. Like it could also be things like if they steal from you, you have to take the money back.
Right, okay, yes, but according to this text, because it says eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Now I'm telling you guys, this is not literal, it is metaphorical, like it's the name of the principle, okay? And the principle is that of equality, like Zaid said. According to this text, how can we know that is not supposed to be interpreted literally? What happens when a man has his eye, put out by another man? What happens? What's supposed to happen? What's the payment, or what's the punishment for that in both texts? In the first
Can I
one?
answer?
Yes.
Well, it says that it could be the same as an eye, or it could be like a mina or a shekel, a big old payment for that damage that you have dealt for that person.
Exactly. Thank you, Zaid. So basically it says, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But when you actually get to the actual law, well, it says if a man puts out the eye of a freed man, he needs to pay. If he puts out the eye of a slave, he needs to pay. That's in the Hammurabi Code, right? And then in the Bible, it says if a man puts out the eye of his slave, he needs to let the slave go free, right? So in neither case, it is actually you need to take your eye out, right? It's never, that's never the response that to having you strike the eye of another man. You will never have your eye taken out, right? It either you need to pay or you need to give the slave his freedom. So this is how we know that that is the name of the principle, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but it shouldn't be interpreted literally. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, now we will get into the differences between the two codes. So what would be one difference between, yes, Lorena?
Okay, so in the first one, slaves have better treatment when hurt in the biblical text.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more detailed?
Okay, yeah. So in the Hammurabi's code, they say that like you can pay when you hurt like when you hurt a slave.
Yeah.
But here in the biblical passage, it says that you have to like let the slave be free, and which is I feel like which is more fair, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Instead
I
of,
agree with that. Yeah.
like, yeah.
Okay.
So I said that they have better the biblical.
Okay, good job. So now let's look at, okay, so we already mentioned the similarities, right? So both laws include the principle that the punishment must fit the crime, which is also known as the law of retaliation, okay? The principle is commonly referred to as eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but this was not be understood literally because both texts have penalties for slaves that differ from injuring an equivalent body part, okay? Now the difference is, as you mentioned, Lorena, is that in the Hammurabi Code, if a slave is injured, the slave owner must compensate with money, right?
Mhm.
While in the Bible, if the slave owner injures his own slave, he must compensate him with freedom, right? So that's one difference. And then the other difference is that in the Hammurabi Code, there's a difference for the punishments that will be inflicted depending on whether the slave that was injured, depending on whether the person that was injured was a slave or a free man, right? So what happens when it's a free man? What's the punishment? If the eye of a free man is injured, what needs to happen, Lorena?
If he put out the eye of a freedman or break the bone of a freedman, he shall pay 1 gold mina. So again, they pay
Exactly.
instead of like.
Right. But if it's a slave,
If it's a slave, he shall pay 1/2 of the value.
exactly. All right. So again, the Hammurabi Code mentions is based on class, social class. The punishments are based on social class, and you see that the value of a slave is less than the value of a free person on the one hand, and not only that, in the Hammurabi Code, if somebody injures the eye of a slave, he doesn't pay the money to the slave. He pays the money to the owner of that slave, right? Because it's the owner that is like losing money or losing his slave's work ability, right? Ability to work. And so it's one man who has to pay the slave owner for the eye of the slave that was injured, right? Whereas in the Bible, it's the slave owner who strikes his own slave's eye, he must give his slave freedom, okay? So it's actually the owner paying the slave for having injured him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Let's move on to something else. But for now, I just want to make sure, who's here now? Did more people join the call?
Yeah. Sam joined, Valencia joined, and I don't know.
Who else? Can you help me out? Because
yeah,
I'm sharing.
Okay, so
Sam?
Hype joined.
Suhaib? Good
Yeah.
morning, Suhaib. Thank you.
And
Suhaib and Valencia.
And Sam.
Okay. Is Rami
and
here? Or Joel?
No.
Or Jarius?
Who is Coob?
Who's who?
Yeah, someone in here is Coop.
Who? Who's who?
Yeah, who's that?
And then there's somebody that's, I don't know, there's like, it's called Pixel something.
Yeah, that's
That's
Maddie.
that's Maddie.
Maddie.
Oh,
Left. I don't
Okay,
know
so
why.
somebody's cool, but all right, let's move on, guys.
Where's Maddie? She left. What's wrong?
Maybe her internet is not working.
Yeah.
Okay, great, everyone. Okay, so now I have an interesting question for you guys. Now, whoever tells me the answer will get a huge extra credit. Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. So that is what the old who just drew on my screen. Okay, so here's the thing. In the Old Testament, the law was eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? We know that's metaphorical. We know that it means, just the principle of that, equal payment. But in the New Testament, Jesus says, you have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, also go the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. All right? So my question is the following. Hold on. Okay, that earlier on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus had said, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. So, okay, let me summarize, all right? So in the Old Testament, the law was eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Now, Jesus comes up and he says, you have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, whoever strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also, right? And he was basically like, don't give back, don't pay back, don't take revenge on what people do against you, but rather humbly accept, accept the injury and stop the cycle of violence. That this is what Jesus is saying. Stop the cycle of violence and break it. So basically, let yourself be humiliated if needed, right? By turning the other cheek, because he's, basically when you turn the other cheek, the cycle of violence is broken, and you show the other person that you will not lower yourself to their standard. So in a sense, you show that you have more dignity because you're not going to strike them back, that you have more that you're clear about your identity, you know who you are. You don't need to demonstrate anything, demonstrate your strength, in order to, for them to know that you are also somebody that needs to be respected. So you basically, it's a more noble, and I think it's a stronger, like it would seem like it's a weaker response if you turn the other cheek, but in my opinion, I think it's a stronger, like you show yourself to be stronger and more able to control yourself, more dignified. So what Jesus is saying is break the cycle of violence. However, he also said, I did not come to abolish the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them. So how in the world is Jesus not abolishing the previous law? If somebody answers this question for me, I will give them massive extra credit. Yes.
Miss, what does abolishing mean?
Abolish means to cancel.
Okay, so what was again?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Okay, so what was the part that you said abolishing something in someone? And
Okay,
I don't know.
so basically, before the law was eye for an eye, tooth for tooth.
Yeah.
Jesus says, don't do that anymore. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he says, I didn't come to cancel the previous law. I came to fulfill it.
Yeah.
So how does that make sense? How can we make sense of the fact that Jesus did not come to cancel the old law, but at the same time, it seems like he is canceling it? Okay?
Well,
So,
Canceling it.
yes, Zayed. Come on, Zayed.
well, to what I think, some things to an extent have to be paid back. But
Okay.
Jesus came in to give mercy to those who do bad instead of, doing it. But at the same time, you're not, he's not abolishing it, but he's just adding to it. Like sometimes, you have to forgive, not always like have to do it like word for word. Like, let's say I killed this man right there and I murdered his family.
Yeah.
And I had like to pay a very heavy price from God.
Yeah.
While they could also forgive me or they could punish me.
Okay.
So it's probably something like that.
All right. All right. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. Does anybody want to say anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
Me.
Who's me? Okay, Christy.
Lorraine. Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, Christy. You go.
Okay, so basically what I think is happening is that when he means to fulfill it, he means to fulfill it in the right way because they're doing it in the wrong way. So he's not
Okay.
canceling it. He wants to do it in the right way. He's trying to fulfill it the right way.
Okay,
So
I
it's
know
not
what
eye
you're
for
trying to
eye
say.
or tooth. It's like not, oh, I want to get revenge. I'm like, oh, like I don't want to get revenge. I want to fulfill it in the right way.
Okay, but here's the thing. The
figured
Old
out
Testament
this.
is saying, here's the thing. The Old Testament, right, is saying take revenge. You have to inflict justice. There has to be justice, right? And Jesus is
Yeah, but
saying,
that's
don't take revenge. So,
Yeah, that's because he's trying to fulfill it. He's trying to make it like right. That before it was wrong. So in the New Testament, when he came, he's trying to fulfill it the right way.
all right, okay. Lorena, you
I
wanted to
think
say something?
Yeah.
after her, can I?
Yes, you can continue after Lorena.
Okay, so basically, so he's not actually like he only came here to die for our sins, and he forgave a lot of sinners as we see in the Bible. There was a lot of people that were sinning, a lot of things happening, but instead of just doing bad stuff or not forgiving them or just let them go away, he just forgave them, and which is basically shows that he wants to have mercy and not revenge, and that even shows it more and more that he wants us to give, like when someone slaps our right cheek, give them the other one, and when the soldiers came and took him to crucify him, and I think it was Peter, I forgot, cut his ear.
Yeah, Peter.
He healed,
Good job.
let them take him,
Yeah.
because he knew he's here to take away our sins, like everyone, not just us, like everyone.
All
So
right.
basically, forgiving every single
Miss,
here.
Okay, hold on. There's a couple of people that are raising their hands. So I
Told
think
me.
Zaid, you
Miss.
wanted to speak. Zaid, you wanted to speak,
Yeah.
and then after Zaid, Suhaib, okay? And then
Okay,
Maddie.
well, it shows
Miss
this,
Amir was raising his hand before.
Oh, really?
but I
Oh,
asked
yeah.
before. I asked, I
Okay, you
asked
guys,
the teacher.
you're both going to go. You're both going to go. So just continue,
So,
Zaid.
as I was saying, it kind of shows this statement in Matthew 5:17, where this prostitute was getting stoned to death, right? So then Jesus came in and gave them a question. If you haven't done no sin, you may throw. So they did something. They did say something like that.
Yeah.
So in that way, he is saying you can do the revenge, but at the same time have some mercy. Like don't overdo it. Like don't try to break the cycle. Try to stop it. Try to uh,
Wait, hold on. Let me get back to you. How did Jesus say do the revenge? Did he say that?
no, he did not. But he said, if you have done if no sin, you can do it. But all of them dropped the rocks and left
Right.
because they all have done
Right.
sins.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a way to show that you are doing, you are showing mercy, or that's in a way that you're breaking the cycle. Always ask yourself this: have you done no sin? so you can do this revenge.
But
Like
God,
that's something like that.
You're
That's what he
getting
kind of said.
really close, Zaid. You're getting
Oh my God.
really close.
Can I answer?
Okay.
But okay, hold on. Who was afterwards? Amir. Amir.
Yeah.
Miss, I've been asking this whole
Miss,
time.
because probably, Miss, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth doesn't mean that the person that you did it to has to be the one that like you have to pay to, right? Because I
Okay.
think like he means that God at the end will punish them, and you do not have to like you don't have to commit sin against them, because God will eventually punish them for what they've done wrong. So if
Wow.
you give them right,
I was about
God
to
is
say
gonna
that,
like
or I was getting near
put them
That
wrong. God is gonna
okay.
put you in heaven, and they're gonna put them.
Wait, Miss,
Wow.
he's right.
Amir, you just got the massive extra credit.
Why did I get hints though?
Zaid,
Miss,
I
how
will-
much is the extra credit?
I haven't decided yet. It depends, okay? I haven't decided yet, but he gets massive extra credit. Good
That
job,
makes you-
Amir.
Partial?
You
like-
will get partial, Zaid.
Wait,
Yes,
so-
you will get partial.
So Miss, the answer is like the law thing isn't what like everybody thinks it is. It has a
Okay,
different
so
meaning.
I will explain the full answer, all
finish.
right? Okay,
Okay.
did anybody want to say anything else? Was anybody else raising their hand?
Me.
Oh, Miss, I already lost my chance.
Who? Who was that? Who was
Maddie.
speaking? Maddie? Maddie, do you want to say something?
Miss, I was trying to say it since the beginning, but Amir already said it.
Oh, okay. I am so sorry, guys. It's okay. There will be plenty of opportunity for you to get extra credit as well. All right. Okay. So here's the thing. Zaid, you brought up a very important point. I was very surprised that you knew the story of the adulterous woman. Okay, hold on. I'm having some trouble here. Somebody opened the door of the room and it's really loud. Okay. So basically, there's another story that is very similar. It's another story where the Pharisees, or basically the teachers of the law, are trying to test Jesus, right? They're trying to trick him and make him say the wrong answer, right? So they ask him, Master, teacher, if Moses allowed people to divorce their wives, right? Is that like, do you support that? Is that okay, like to divorce one's wives? And what was Jesus's response? His response was, that was a law that Moses gave you because of the hardness of your hearts. Okay, so Moses did give the law. Whoever wants to divorce his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But then Jesus comes and turns it on its head and says, well, actually, that was a law that Moses gave you because of the hardness of your hearts, right? Because you are stubborn people and you don't treat your wives well, and then they, kind of like rebel against you, and then you want to divorce them, right? So because of the hardness of your heart, Moses allowed you to divorce his wives, but that was not the original command, because what does God say in the Old Testament about divorce? God says, I hate divorce. That's what God says. I think it's in Micah, in the prophet Micah. Okay, God says, I hate divorce. Okay, whoever is playing with my screen, could you please stop, because it's distracting? Who is doing this? Who's playing with my screen?
Of
Miss?
course they won't say.
Yeah, of course they won't say, but don't do that again. Okay, now hold on, let me finish. Now, the way that example helps us answer the question is, was there too an original law, right, about the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that Moses changed because of the hardness of the hearts of the people? And the answer to that is yes, there was an original law that was, don't take revenge, because there's a Bible verse where God says, vengeance is mine, I will repay. Okay, so basically when you take vengeance yourself, what you're doing is you're taking God's place as the judge that has to uh, execute justice. You're taking God's place, right? Is it really loud? I'm sorry, guys.
I was gonna say, I wanted to say that, like, who are
Guys, give me 1 second. I just need to close the door. It's so loud in here. I think it's because there's break time. Give me 1 minute, all right? Guys, it's really loud. Can you close the doors, please? It's really loud.
You okay, miss?
Yes, I hit myself against the desk. Oh my gosh.
That's gotta hurt.
Yeah,
Miss, are you okay?
yeah, I'm okay. That was funny.
you're at school?
Yes, I'm at school because
Okay, so
I teach today. Okay, who wanted to continue?
me.
Can you close the door, Dallas, please? Thank you. All right. Yes, please. Lorena.
So that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, who are we to judge? It's like, it's literally God's place. It's God's job. It's not ours. We go for what they make or what they do or their appearances. If they slap us, if we slap them back, that's basically judging them on what they did to us.
Exactly so. So basically, again, let me just repeat. So just as there was an original law where God says, do not divorce because I hate divorce, but Moses gave the people a different law, basically allowing the people to give their wives certificate of divorces. Why? The people had to give their wives a certificate of divorce because if they didn't, then the wives would be forced like to go into prostitution basically because after you've already been married, nobody wants to marry you, and so you are basically left without protection. Nobody provides for you, nobody supports you, and so you're forced, basically was like forcing them to go into prostitution. So this is why Moses said, if you really need to divorce your wife because you can't stand her, then fine, you can divorce her, but you need to give her a certificate of divorce, right? But that was not the original command. Now, concerning eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, the original command was do not take revenge, because revenge is mine. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And whoever takes revenge is taking God's place. But because of the hardness of the heart of the people, Moses gave them eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, all right? So when Jesus comes around, what he does is he restores the original spirit of the law, okay? The original command. And this is why he says, do not resist an evil person. If somebody strikes you on the one cheek, turn to him the other also. Okay, say it.
Doesn't also God hate suffering, like hate people being suffered a lot?
Yes, of course, he does.
So does that also come to that divorce certificate that the husband is giving? Let's say, for example, the husband was being very abusive to the wife.
Yeah.
And so you have no choice but to leave him.
Yeah.
Or to divorce him.
Yeah.
Isn't that also does that rule also apply to the divorce thing?
Exactly. So this is precisely why Moses gave, the possibility of divorcing. Because if the husband is mistreating his wife and abusing her, right? She must divorce. But it's precisely because of the hardness of the heart of the husband, precisely because he is so awful to her, that Moses was like, she needs a way out. She needs to divorce. But originally, if we lived in a perfect world, the husband would be loving to his wife, and the wife would be, gladly submitting to her husband. And in that way, there wouldn't be divorce. But divorce brings so much pain to the world, right? God knows that divorce brings so much pain to the world. Like there's, the children are left torn between the two parents. Like it brings division, it brings suffering and all these things. So originally, God never wanted divorce to be, possible. But precisely because there's so much suffering because of the abuse, then he also cares for those that are suffering, and he says, okay, although I hate divorce, I allow Moses to give you this law precisely because you're so evil and wicked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Christy, you
Miss,
wanted to say something.
Yeah, basically, some people are insane, and as Zaid said, they're abusive. For example, if a wife just had enough and she wanted to divorce her husband, but some people like aren't okay with that and they just want to keep her, or for example, she won't like they won't let them leave. Like, what would she do in that situation?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. Um, I think she could at that point come before a judge, in ancient Israel, and he could like study the situation and he could give her that ability to, request a divorce because her husband, he didn't want to like divorce her, but he was being abusive. So I think that was
Yeah.
totally an option. But yeah, I mean, so you see the origin of all these things that happen today, they have these ancient origins because the human heart is essentially the same. We haven't changed at all. We have more technology now, but the reality is the human heart is pretty much the same. So these laws are still relevant for us today, all right? Okay, so now we will move on to the second. Okay, so we already discussed this, right? The reason why I wrote it is because I will upload this document so you can take notes, okay? All right. Now, comparison number 2. Can somebody please read it for me?
Can I read?
Yes. Zay, go ahead.
I'm going to start with Hammurabi.
Okay.
If a son strikes his father, his hands shall be hewn off. Code of Hammurabi 195. Whoever strikes father or mother shall be put to death. Bible, Exodus 21 till 15.
All right.
Oh, 21:15.
Yes, good job. All right, so now what is the similarity and what is the difference between the two codes? Zayed?
The similarity is basically both do not hit your parents or do not be rude to them.
Good job.
And the difference is in Hammurabi, you get your hands cut off, while if you disrespect your parents, you just get put to death.
Okay. So what does that tell you about the Bible? What does that tell you? Okay, hold on. Does anybody else want to answer that?
Me,
Who said me?
Christy.
I think
Christy, please, go ahead.
Okay, basically what I think the similarities are just don't hit your parents or do anything wrong, and because there will be a punishment either way,
Right.
like for both.
And the difference?
The difference, that there are different punishments. Like, for example, the Bible is just more strict, and then the Hammurabi will be like, I'm gonna cut your hands off.
Why do you think, okay, who can tell me, why do you think the Bible is more strict about this? Is that a good thing or bad thing, Christy?
I think it's kind of a good thing, but at the same time a bad thing. I think that the Bible is strict. It's because, you have to respect each other, and when Jesus and God says like be respectful, be nice to others, and then for you to do that, there's obviously going to be a stricter.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else want to say something? Zayed, you wanted to say something?
Well, the reason why the Bible is more strict about this, it's because who took care of you, who put food in your plate, who built you a roof on top of your head, and it's like who gave you all of these things in order for your life to succeed, and you treat them in this way. This is why the Bible's more strict about it.
Okay. All right. So let's look at this slide. Does anybody else want to say something? Who said miss?
Me.
Oh, Lorena, yes.
My phone turned off and it wasn't turning on because I want to join the Zoom call. Okay. So what happened?
What happened? Can somebody? No. Okay. Let me summarize. Okay. So we were just talking about this second comparison between the Hammurabi Code and the Bible. It says that if you strike a parent in the Hammurabi Code, your hands must be cut off. Whereas if you strike a parent in the Bible, you should be put to death. Okay. So we are exploring the similarity and the differences, and now we're summarizing. The conclusion of this is like both laws deal with hitting a parent, striking a parent. The differences are, you have the punishment is death in the Bible and cutting the hands in the Hammurabi Code. Now, here's the thing, guys. Notice that in neither case, the punishment is striking the child, right?
Yeah.
This reinforces the understanding that the law of eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth was never meant to be interpreted literally, right? Rather, it's a principle.
Yeah.
Second of all, both law codes see parents as having higher status than their children, right? However, the Bible sees sin for what it really is and applies the corresponding punishment, right? Because Romans 6:23 says the wages of sin is death, or the punishment for sin is death. So sometimes we tend to see sin as a very light thing, or it's okay, God forgives, he's merciful, he's compassionate, but we forget that God, he is a just and righteous and holy God, and he cannot tolerate the presence of sin. Okay, if God were to accept a person who sinned, like striking his parent or lying to his parents or stealing or killing somebody, if God were okay with that, right, it would mean that he was less than righteous, less than perfect, because he tolerates the presence of sin. But the reality is that God is so holy that he cannot tolerate the presence of sin, and therefore the sinful person has to pay with his life. So the only way that sin can ever be atoned is by the shedding of blood, right? This is why a person must die. So the reality is that the Bible sees sin for what it really is, and therefore the proper punishment for that is death, okay? And we already explored why we human beings don't die, and that is because God has already provided an appropriate substitute for that death, who has already died in our place. Okay, so that's the reason why the Bible punishment is a lot harsher. It's because it takes sin for what it really is and how horrible it is. Like what Zayd said, you are basically being not just ungrateful, but you are it's just on such a deeper level of like the person that just nursed you, provided for you, and raised you, and loves you, and you are challenging that authority, and you basically don't deserve to live. Like in God's eyes, he also sees the pain in the mother's heart of like, my own child is challenging me, and God sees the horror of that and the pain of that, and so he wants to you know he wants to, in his eyes, the punishment is death. All right. So this is why the punishment in the Bible is harsher. Is everybody clear on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Miss, can I tell you what I wrote?
Yes, Lorena, go ahead.
Okay, for the similarities, I wrote that fathers are given priorities. And for the differences, like in both passages, and in the differences, I wrote that both parents are treated equally in the biblical text, unlike the Hammurabi Code of 250 laws.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I think Sam also wanted to speak. Sam? I think he raised his hand. Hold on. Sam,
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes. It was something that we already discussed.
Oh, we already discussed it? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on. Okay, comparison number 3. Who wants to read it? Sam, do you want to read it? No? Somebody else?
I can read it.
Who said? Oh, okay, Lorena.
Me,
Go ahead.
Lorena. Okay. So if a man strike a freeborn higher class woman so that she lose her unborn child, he shall pay 10 shekels for her loss. If the woman die, his daughter shall be put to death. If a woman of the free lower class lose her child by a blow, he shall pay 5 shekels in money. If this woman die, he shall pay half a mina. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, when people who are fighting injure a pregnant woman so that there is a miscarriage, and yet no further harm follows, the one responsible shall be fined that what the woman's husband demands, paying as much as the judges determine. If any harm follows, then you shall give life for life.
All right. Okay, so we are kind of running out of time. So let me just, somebody read the next slide for me.
I'll read it.
Okay, Zaid, go ahead.
Both of these laws will deal with an injury to a pregnant woman that results in a miscarriage or death of the woman. Both laws call for monetary compensation for the miscarriage. Both call for the death penalty if a woman dies, life for life, in the biblical text.
Okay, now what are the differences? You can continue.
The Code Hammurabi differentiates between victims of the basis of status. A miscarriage of lower class woman has a lower monetary penalty than a miscarriage of a higher class woman. The death of a lower class woman has a monetary penalty rather than the death penalty. While the Bible calls for the death penalty for the person who injures the woman, the Code of Hammurabi calls for the death of that person's daughter. In the Code of Hammurabi, the death of a female is considered equivalent to the death of another female, but not necessarily to the death of a male.
Okay, is that clear? Do we need to go back and look at the text?
Yeah.
See what
Yeah,
happened?
I get it.
Okay, let's look at the text again. So it says that if a man strike a freeborn higher class woman so that she lose her unborn child, he shall pay 10 shekels for her loss, right? If the woman die, his daughter shall be put to death, right? So whereas in the Bible, the man that kills, basically she dies as a result of her miscarriage, the man that caused the miscarriage must die, right? So basically in the Bible, the value of a woman is the same as the value of a man. Whereas in the Hammurabi Code, the value of a woman is only equaled by the value of another woman. So if a man strikes a woman and she dies, she loses her child, but she also dies, he doesn't die, but his daughter dies, right? Does that make sense? So there is a difference in the value that women have in the Hammurabi Code and in the Bible. In the Bible, a man and a woman are equal, their values equal, right? If a woman dies, the man who killed her dies. But in the Hammurabi Code, if a woman dies, the daughter of the man that killed her dies, okay? Is that clear?
Miss, I have a question.
Yes, question?
Yes, Miss, for the similarities and differences, can you send us a picture so I can fill it in?
Yes, sweetie, I will upload this PowerPoint to Drive and I will share it with you on Facebook so you can take notes for the exam, okay? Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Miss,
wonderful.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, questions, Aid.
So the homework that you gave us, like the big old worksheet that you gave us,
Yeah.
are we gonna work in it? I thought we were gonna work with this worksheet in the Zoom class.
No, so this will be homework for the weekend. You have 3 days to work on it.
Yeah.
It's not it's long, but it's not hard. It's really, really easy. And you should be finished with it in one and a half hours, maybe 1 hour. So it's not hard. And then you will turn it in at the beginning of class on Monday. And on class, we will talk about something else, okay? So we will not discuss this worksheet in class. It's just homework and I will pick it up, all right?
Cool.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful class today, wonderful discussion. And yeah, have a great weekend and see you guys on Monday. All right?
Thank you.
Bye, Miss.
Goodbye, everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Yes.
Is that Ronnie? Oh my gosh.
What the heck was that?
I have no idea what that was, but anyway. Wait, who else joined? Gianna, you're here. Who else?
Miss, I am here. Anna, Miss, I am Kub.
You're cool? Who's Anna?
Miss Jarius.
Jerry. And Ellie too. Type. All right. See you guys again on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Goodbye.
Okay,
Bye, Miss.
Mm.